Today, we're shining a light on a group that is often overlooked in conversations about cancer support: men. Whether they are fathers, husbands, partners, sons, brothers, or friends, men facing cancer diagnosis can carry an enormous emotional burden while feeling pressure to remain strong for everyone around them. The reality is that cancer affects far more than the person receiving treatment. It impacts identities, relationships, parenting, work, and mental health. Yet many men struggle to find spaces where they feel comfortable talking about those challenges or connecting with others who truly understand. We're excited to introduce today's guest from Real Recovery, an organization dedicated to supporting men living with cancer through peer connection, time in nature, and the healing power of shared experience. Welcome to Wondercast, a community collaborative podcast supporting families navigating the complexities of chronic illness or injury. Wondercast is supported by the generous sponsorship of Texas Oncology. Texas Oncology, more breakthroughs, more victories, experts in cancer care. As we approach Father's Day, this conversation serves as an important reminder that the men in our lives need support too, and that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. Let's dive in. Meet Stan.
Hi, Julie. I am Stan. I'm the executive director and co-founder of Real Recovery. We've been around for 23 years, and I've been with the organization since day one. It's been an incredible ride. We started in 2003 with one retreat, and now we're doing 43, both in the U.S. and all around the world, actually.
That's amazing. For our listeners who may not be familiar with the mission behind Real Recovery, do you want to share a little bit about it and how the organization came to be?
Sure. Well, our mission is pretty straightforward. We want to help men coping with cancer. And we started back in 2003 when I was working as associate director for an organization called Casting for Recovery. And they originated the idea of using fly fishing to help women with breast cancer cope with their disease and recovery. The day after I was told that the organization was moving to Vermont from my home in Massachusetts and I was going to lose my job, a man called Stuart Brown called the office. I was in there moping, and he wanted to know if Casting for Recovery wanted to do the same thing for men. He was an avid fly fisher who was dealing with a stage 4 glioblastoma.
Oh, man.
And when he was fishing, his cancer went away. There was no pain, there was no cancer, there was no disease. He was lost in the fishing experience. He wanted to give that same experience to other men with cancer. And so I flew out to Denver, where he was based, and he had two friends who were looking to start this up. And we went out fishing in the middle of April in Colorado, and it was snowing, sleeting, about 36 degrees. And Stuart Brown, 48 years old, with a stage 4 brain tumor, was standing in this middle of this river fishing until it was so dark I couldn't see him. He was that dedicated and passionate about fly fishing, helping him forget about his cancer. So that night, we put a stake in the ground and said, let's do this. And 6 weeks later, we had our first retreat in Loveland, Colorado. This was in June of 2003. And it was Stuart and three other colleagues of his, patients of a neurologist in Denver, all with brain cancer. And we held this first retreat. One of my co-founders was a psychotherapist. He designed the program. And we had 3 magical days of fishing and talking and experiencing the magic of what became Real Recovery.
That's amazing. What an incredible legacy. In 23 years, that's wonderful.
We have survived. and
Yes.
Actually, Stu left that first retreat going into brain surgery the next day. And he never really fully recovered. But he wrote a letter to Lance Armstrong, who had just started his foundation at that point to help cancer survivors. And I put a cover letter on this letter from Stu, sent it to Lance, and about 3 days later, Lance's office called Stu, who was in hospice at that point in Denver, and Lance was coming out for a conference, wanted to meet Stu, spent a half an hour with him, and turned to his development guy and said, "We're going to help these guys." They called me the next day out here in Boston, said, "Have you ever written a grant?" I said, "No." And I said, "Well, you're going to. We want to help you out." And they gave us enough money to have a second retreat that year, develop our website and so forth. But we were able to tell Stu that his legacy was going to live on because he passed away another 3 weeks later. Real recovery was going to live on.
Incredible legacy. I think and I love the mission behind it. Now, you mentioned the psychotherapist that kind of created this curriculum that you kind of follow this agenda. Do you want to take a minute to kind of share what a recovery retreat looks like?
Sure. And it hasn't really changed since the first because it worked so well then. It worked so well the second time. And we've now had 495 retreats using the same basic process. And it's fundamentally mixing the fly fishing, being out in nature, getting a break, having a vacation, being cared for by the volunteers, by the staff at the facilities, getting a complete break from your normal cancer routine, which men are in day to day to day to day to day. It's a grind. But we also combine it with what we call courageous conversations. So there's 6 separate conversations that we facilitate. And it's really just an opportunity for these guys to share their stories. We don't do therapy. We don't do counseling. It's just, we want to create a safe space where these men can share their cancer journeys with other men who understand it. They get it. And that's a pretty rare opportunity for men to have. And that process, we don't do crosstalk. We don't have right answers, wrong answers. There's no judgment. Each man has their unique cancer story, and we just want them to be free and safe to share that with others. We ask a question that will facilitate them thinking about a certain aspect of that cancer journey, but it's really simple. And then we combine it with the fishing and the joy that they can experience with the fishing, the camaraderie that they get at the meals and the space. It's just it's an amazing 3-day experience that I don't think they fully expect. A lot of them, it's a cover story is they're going to go fishing. Well, they accuse us of being psychologists pretending to be fly fishermen, but it's created just a magical results over the 23 years.
Now, in a retreat, how many men do you typically have that come to participate at a time?
Well, our maximum is 14 because we want to make sure that the group is small enough, intimate enough that each man has time to share their stories and the logistics of it. Depends on the size of the facility. Some can only take 10, and so we'll have 10 at those, but anywhere between 10 and 14 is our range. The retreats are completely free. All they have to do is get there, and then we take care of all the lodging, meals, fly fishing equipment. We give them one-on-one fly fishing instruction. Volunteers come who are good fly fishers, and they'll stand with them and help them learn, keep them safe, and then just sit on the bank and talk. So that creates another dynamic of a whole nother group of strangers who are coming to help these guys, which is pretty unique in their experiences that there are people out there who care enough to give up 2 days of their time to just be there, teach them how to fish, share their joy of fly fishing, and share their stories.
And I love that you answered one of my questions. I was wondering what the expertise level had to be, but it sounds like you can have new fishermen all the way up to
The participants could be zero. A lot of them have never touched a fly rod. Some of them have never done any kind of fishing. And then there'll be others who are quite experienced at it. So we have the full range. It really doesn't matter because we do give them the one-on-one instruction. Even the best fly fisher, fished for 50 years, will still have them with a fishing buddy. And that's not necessarily to teach them how to fish, but just to unhook the fish, net the fish, keep them safe, and share the time with them.
that's wonderful.
The buddies, the volunteers need to be competent fly fishers. We more look for good fishermen who are good people and who get the mission and just want to be caring, friendly helpers. And they can be male or female fishing buddies, we call them.
For people that are looking to connect, is this through your website? Is this something that they do? There's an application process. What does that look like?
So most of our participants hear about us through their medical providers. We try to get our brochures into cancer centers, support centers, and they'll hear it from oncology social workers. And through their network, they might see a guy in an infusion center wearing a real recovery hat. They might do it through internet search, fly fishing clubs. And once they learn about it, then they go to our website and we have an online application. The full schedule is laid out. They can pick the retreat they want to come to and apply. They can only come to one because they're so completely free. We want to give that opportunity to as many people as possible, but they're not geographically restricted. So somebody living in Iowa can come to one in California and anyone around the country. Our international destinations are limited to the people in those countries. So
That
we've
makes
got
sense.
a lot of Americans have wanted to go to New Zealand, of course, but
Same. Me too.
we all do, but it's for New Zealand residents only.
With that, do people have to be actively in treatment, or can this be something they do when they are maybe a year out or in their kind of space where they're just getting scans and more maintenance?
They could be at any stage of their cancer journey, even 20 years cancer free. I was just at a Montana retreat and we had a guy who had childhood leukemia and had been, cancer free for 20 years. He had it when he was 12 years old. But that's a good story. And we've had guys who were diagnosed 3 weeks ago and they're just at the start. So we have this broad range of cancer stories, journeys, places in that journey, some in remission, some in active treatment, some done with treatment and heading to hospice, full gamut. And same with the age range from 21 to 93. Along with that, every type of cancer. So we get this broad mix of experiences in the room, in those conversations. So somebody new is learning from somebody who's got the same cancer maybe and seeing, wow, this guy made it. Maybe I can make it. Or this guy went through this and that. I'm not alone in thinking this is torturous or this is horrible or I'm having these experiences. They can learn from others who've had the same experiences.
So I love how Real Recovery combines peer support with fly fishing and time in nature. How have you found that combination to be so impactful?
That's a good question. There's some support groups that are just an hour in the hospital conference room and to take them out of that setting immediately changes their brains. I mean, you drive up to a beautiful place and you just start to relax. And I think this is an experience of going into nature, period. But most of our places are in beautiful spots. They're in pretty nice facilities and they get taken care of. And I think it just releases a lot of that stress and tension that they're experiencing in their day-to-day cancer grind. It takes them out of their routines, takes them out of being in the cancer patient role. They have to look at their doctors and their appointments and taking their meds and all these kind of things that just they go out and that burden is taken off their shoulders for a few days. I think that allows them to then get a new perspective. Then we take them out and fish, and maybe they're learning a brand new skill. And a lot of these guys have thought that because of cancer and what it's done to limit their abilities that they had, couldn't do something new. And by teaching them something new and maybe even catching a fish and feeling that joy, the electric excitement, it gives them inspiration perhaps that they can do something new. Maybe they can't do what they used to do, but here's something new that maybe they can do, or maybe there's something else that they can learn to do, that their life is still there to be lived.
I love that. Have you found during moments of your retreats, maybe there is a space that the men begin to let their guard down? Have you seen them connect in ways that perhaps you didn't even originally expect?
I think that happened at the first retreat. I think we were all stunned at how effective just providing this space was for these men. And at that first retreat, because they had brain cancer, two of them were very limited in their ability to verbalize. It had impacted their verbal skills, but they still did it. And we all just were riveted at every word. So we see that almost within an hour of them arriving. You get
Wow.
these total strangers coming to this place, and we give them an hour, maybe two, to just sort of settle in. And they'll be sitting out on the porch talking to each other, starting to share stories before we even begin. We get into the first conversation, and we give them some icebreakers, and we get them laughing, and they're telling stories about their first car or their first fishing experience with their grandfather, or that kind of thing, and they start to engage with each other. So we see them opening up pretty much that first day, and it's amazing. It's amazing, and then they'll go to dinner, and they'll be talking to each other, and they'll be sharing their cancer stuff, and they'll be sharing their life stories, and they might have common. Maybe they went to the same school, maybe they've got the same doctor, maybe they whatever it is, but they just start engaging with each other.
As child life specialists, we talk about how play is this primary form of communication for children. It's the way that they really were first taught to communicate. So, as they are given these opportunities to play, their ability to communicate just is strengthened. It sounds like the community and communication that's built through these retreats are the same. You're taking the weight of cancer, not taking the cancer away, but the weight of cancer off and giving them this space to just play and be
Play.
around play.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's a beautiful way to put it. I mean, we don't call it play,
Of course.
but it really is the same experience, because by giving them the care, we're giving them a beautiful dinner, we're taking the burdens off, which allows them to experience this new joy like play. In fact, we ask them when we're facilitating that first evening, we say, "What was your first fly fishing experience or fishing experience?" A lot of them will be 5 years old, 6 years old with grandpa, grandma, their little brother, whatever it is, and we encourage them to remember that sense of play they had and bring it to the next day when they're fishing. Just let it go and just play and enjoy it. So it's really interesting that it's very similar.
Yes.
And when they come back from that day of fishing, their faces are just lit up, and the smiles and the joy from the first night to the second night, it's electrifying, because they're just like different people. They've come in with these burdens, and they've just been lifted. They've had this play, and they're like kids sharing their fishing stories and their exploits and laughing, and it's it's pretty amazing.
I imagine that this is one of those jobs that you have where you're like, "How did I get so lucky?" I
There's no doubt, and that's why I've been doing it for 23 years.
Right. Yes.
Clearly, I mean, I used to be walking through an airport, going off to a retreat and thinking, "I have got the best job in the world." I mean,
Yes.
and it still is, and it's so fulfilling and rewarding. I maybe go to 4 or 5 retreats a year now. I used to
Mhm.
go to more, but now that we've got 43 of them, it's not so easy to, and we've got 3 going at the same time, but I still get this sense of wonder. I mean,
Yes.
wonder. There you
Yes.
go.
That's
Part of
it.
your part of your mission. When I see these guys and the magic that happens at these retreats, it I hear the same things, the same themes come out at many of the retreats, but it doesn't feel repetitious,
Yeah.
because these are all unique individuals with their unique stories, and it's so rewarding to see the joy that they experience, that these guys are suffering, some of them really, really badly, and we give them joy. We get to see them at their best, and hopefully they go home with that sense of joy and sense of purpose and sense of renewed hope. It's interesting, I've been asked, what are the goals of the retreat? We don't have any other than provide them this opportunity. They take what they want and what they need out of it. We just create the sort of container in which all this kind of magic happens, but our goal is not, to make them feel more hopeful or to make them feel it's just, and I think that's part of the beauty of what we do
Yeah.
is there's no agenda other than care for these men, give them this opportunity to take from it what they want and what they need. A lot of them don't know what they want or need when they come, but then they realize, "Whoa, uh, I've got a lot from this."
And I'm sure that those that are in this experience together, they probably form these deep relationships that come with vulnerability that you see. So I'm sure there's opportunities that they can exchange contact information and stay connected after a retreat, which I'm sure is very impactful as well.
Yes, we provide all that contact information. We'll see them setting up chat groups at the retreat, putting their stuff in their phones now, using WhatsApp over in England. They'll create these groups right away and they'll stay in touch. And we've had guys who stayed in touch for years. They go fishing together. They'll just have coffee together.
Gosh, I
They'll
love that.
share pictures of them on trips, whatever it is. But we allow that to again happen organically. Some guys
Mhm.
may not want to do it. So it's
Yeah.
all up to them, but it gives them sort of a sense of agency over their own lives, that they have the opportunity to build on these connections they've made or choose not to. It's up to them. Our agenda, even though it's structured, it's really flexible within that. They can choose not to fish. They can choose not to be in the group. They can choose to take a walk, take pictures, do whatever they want. They have choice. And I think when men are dealing with cancer, they get a sense of losing that choice, that sense of control. A lot of them will say they thought they were in control of their lives and now they have no sense of control. And none of us do, but there's agency there. And so we don't force anything on them. It's all about their choice and having agency around their lives.
From your experience with just working so many years in the support system for these incredible men fighting through a horrible disease, we know that this episode will air close to Father's Day. And while I say fathers, I'm really meaning all men because I'd love to talk a little bit about the unique experience that men have shared as they're navigating illness. How does a cancer diagnosis, for example, affect their sense of identity? A partner, or even as a dad, as a provider, right? How have people shared that that's been impacted by cancer?
Well, we actually ask that question often. How has having cancer impacted your masculinity, but even bigger than that, your sense of identity, your sense of purpose, your humanity? So I've heard the answers to that a thousand times.
They're
And
probably written on your brain.
some guys feel like they have to live by man rules. You hold it in. You got to be strong. They're providers for their family. They've lost the ability to provide financial stability for their family because they can't work anymore. That's a huge sense of loss. We don't see traditional roles. We want them to break out of that if they can, but a lot of them have been in that as the provider, as the strength and stability in their families, and they've lost that. Now they have to ask for help. Men, we don't like to generalize, but a lot of men have great difficulty asking for help. Well, now they can't mow their own lawn. Now maybe they can't even get to the bathroom. Maybe they've had to ask for help. So it changes the relationships that they have had as the one providing the help. Now they have to ask for the help. That can be a real struggle for a lot of men adapting to that shift. Talking with others who are going through the same thing or had to do the same thing, I think gives them a sense that I'm okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay that I can't do those things anymore. I'm still a valuable human being. A lot of men that we've heard that their value has been defined by sort of these traditional, the provider, the helper, the fixer, and they can't do that anymore. And so they've had to adjust their whole perspective on their relationships, who they are in the world.
And I don't know that there's many programs out there like this. Are there other programs that are doing this? You guys are it.
Well, when we started this 23 years ago, we we focused on men because men had nothing. There was no support for men, and there's still very, very little. I don't know of any other retreat program that does this sort of immersive 3 days for men with cancer. There's another group that we are now partnered with that has developed a support system for men with cancer called Man Up to Cancer.
Yes, I met them. They're wonderful.
Oh, yeah, they're great. We send our guys to them, or we tell them, if you want to keep these conversations going, go to Man Up to Cancer. They send their guys, if you want a deeper, great experience fly fishing and talking to other men, go to ours. So, but they're maybe 5, 6 years old, relatively new, and they're great, but there's not much else.
Yeah. I'm so glad that this exists. And I'm excited for it to be there for another 23 years because there's
Well,
such a need.
there really is. And, I wish we could do 143 retreats, but, coming from 0 to 43 is pretty exciting. And
That's super exciting.
being in Argentina and New Zealand and Australia and the UK and seeing how men there are dealing with this exact same stuff as men here, and that the process of giving them this safe opportunity to talk about it has the exact same impact in all these other countries as it does here. Just really gratifying to see that this works wherever we go.
Well, I want to be honorable of our time. So I'm going to end with this. Maybe for anyone who's listening who either has an important man in their life who is navigating a cancer diagnosis, or they themselves listening have a cancer diagnosis, do you have any advice or anything to encourage them to consider this program?
Just do it. So,
Yeah.
many, many, many men are very apprehensive about going to something like this. They think it's either going to be touchy-feely or a bunch of strangers. We're we're terrible at making ourselves vulnerable, and I won't generalize. Men are compared to women. Just we're terrible. So we deal with that apprehension all the time, and a lot of time it's the spouse or partner who's saying, "You have to go.
Mhm.
You're going to this. I'm signing you up. You've got to go." And then they come home, they've absolutely loved it, and I just could pretty much guarantee that anyone listening to this, thinking about it, should come, and they will have a wonderful time, and it's not scary. We're not asking you to do anything other than share your story, and it's hard. I mean, some of these men have not even told their spouses that they've been getting prostate cancer treatments for the past 2 years. That's how closed up a lot of these guys have been, but I will just say that talking about it is really helpful and healing and positive and can be a life-changing experience.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast today. Please subscribe and continue to check back as our content is ever evolving. For questions or specific content-related requests, please send an email to podcast@wondersandworries.org.